Hi, Lauren. How are you?
Courtney, I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so excited to be here with you today and chat about all things Christmas in July. I'm super excited. I'm in South Florida right now where it's like 95 degrees, so it's really fun to think about cozy Christmas sweaters and cookies and all of the things. But as you and I have chatted before about the whole Christmas in July thing, is not only is it a wonderful time to really prepare for one of the most busiest times of the years as a publisher and a marketer and somebody who develops content. It's so good to get ahead of things, right? But it's also like, I always look at July as almost like your second January. It's like the time to evaluate what worked and then also really make plans and fine tune things. And so I have my pin ready because I know I'm going to learn so much from you today, as everybody else who's watching. And we're so grateful to have you here. So, yeah, so Lauren, just tell me a little bit about yourself. I'll let you do a little introduction. And you're with Winsome Marketing, and we're such big fans, and you all help us so much and are such a wealth of knowledge. And so, yeah, tell us just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get right into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm so happy to be here. Happy Christmas in July. As you can tell, I really went all out with the bold red lip. I have a reindeer t-shirt on. My mug is a little gingerbread house. So truly, I'm all in the holiday spirit. I was having a blast putting this together, which it is, yeah, about 80, 90 out here in North Carolina. So nice to reminisce about some cozy, comfortable weather. But yeah, I'm really jazzed to give this presentation and to talk with you today. So a little bit about me is that I'm the head of content over at Winsome Marketing, and I've been there for about 6 months now, and working under Joy has just been an absolute dream. We have a lot of fantastic writers who build content strategies and content for hundreds of different businesses across industries and size. And we really help them hone their message so they understand who they're talking to, what their core differentiators are, and how we can put all that onto the internet so that the right people find them at the right time. And I've been in the world of content for 10 years now, ranging from writing to managing teams to strategic brand work, and now leading the fantastic content team here at Winsome. So jazzed to be here.
Amazing, amazing. I know that we have a lot to get to because there's just so much to share and so much great information about seasonal content and strategies for publishers who are developing their own website content and driving unique communities to their website. So, yeah, if you don't mind, I'm ready. I'm ready to learn. So go ahead and jump on in.
Absolutely. Let's do it. So I think we can't talk about seasonal content strategies without first talking about what a content strategy actually is. So we need that core and our foundation to then be able to add the sprinkles and the sparkles and that holiday flair. So we're going to talk at first about building that content strategy and what you need to do to make it effective. Then we're going to dive into some of the seasonality aspects of it. So I'll try to zip through the content strategy foundation so we can get to the fun snowflakes and glitter and all that good stuff. So the building a content strategy is very nuanced, and I've broken it down into 8 points into our content strategy Christmas star. And the most important one that we start with is brand. So I just feel like we can't have a conversation about content strategy without looking inward and knowing who we are first, because your brand is really your company's DNA. It's your publishers, it's your blog's DNA, who you are, how you present yourself to the world. So what does that have to do with content strategy in any way? You're like, cool, it's my personality. It's the Christmas sweater that I decide to wear to an ugly Christmas sweater party. But what does that mean for my content? It really affects where, how, and why you show up. Because if you're operating in a specific vertical, you should be talking about certain things. You should be asking certain questions, making certain statements. You're expected to kind of show up in a certain way depending on how you position yourself as a brand, what your values are, what your mission is, your market differentiation, your value propositions, all of that. And it's also really the story that ties everything together. And as we know, storytelling is just so critical in content marketing. You can't have a great piece of content or a good content strategy without that story foundation, because we know it builds trust and loyalty, repeat customers, all of the good things.
Yeah, and I think the brand in my mind is to kind of go on the star theme is kind of your North Star. Like you set your brand and you are always pointing to it when you're making decisions about content. You're making sure that it's consistent, that it aligns with the brand that you've decided to present to the world. That's what when you're sitting there talking, I'm like, it's really the thing that you're going to kind of funnel all decisions through, right? I mean, I think that is a really important. I love that, of course, it's number one, and because it is such a crucial part of decision making around what you're going to produce.
Exactly, because you could have the same piece of content that's filtered through hundreds of different lenses, depending on the brand. So one piece of holiday content of a holiday gift guide, for example, that should look hundreds, if not thousands of different ways, depending on the brand that you have. So very important. I love the North Star analogy. That's fantastic. And I think just as important as brand, it's almost number one, but it's not quite, is your audience. I feel like you need to know yourself before you can talk to others effectively. So that's why audience is number two, but they are really the key to determining all of your content's success, because it affects everything from what you decide to talk about to how you decide to talk about it, and then where you decide to talk about it. All of those things should be dictated by your audience. And I think so many people talk about, okay, how do you find your ideal audience? Use your ideal audience, find your target audience. But no one talks about what that means. And it's a very detailed, very nuanced process that takes a long time, lots of research, but you really want to know, their demographics. So that's kind of the basics. But also their psychographics. So what are their values, their hopes, their dreams, what keeps them up at night, what scares them. But you also want to know their self-perception. So when you are engaging with someone, how do they see themselves right now? And then after engaging with your particular piece of content, your ad, how do you want them to feel afterwards? What does that transformation journey look like? Because that's really critical for your marketing and your positioning. So your copy will be very intricately tied to that. You also want to know their key pain points and value drivers, those kinds of things. But of course, then where they're at online. So their online habits, how long are they online? Where are they showing up? Where should you show up in turn? And their buying patterns as well. So a lot going on. And there are a lot of tools that you can use to help you get this information. I really like using SEMrush. SEMrush, you'll hear me talk about that a lot throughout this presentation. I'm not just saying that because I used to work there, but it's a fantastic tool. SparkToro also has a really good market research tool, and you can use other free tools like Google Analytics and GSC to analyze your audience data and figure out what is performing really well, what is my audience interested in. Tools like Answer the Public as well can really be helpful there, and just additional just basic research. So audience is our point number 2.
Awesome.
Then we go into our competitors. I think that a lot of times people get too hung up on their competitors. It will actually stop them from posting content or from doing something because they're like, ooh, I have to peek around the corner. What are they up to? And that really colors what you decide to do as a writer, as a content creator, and you don't want to get caught in that trap. So instead, think about like what exactly you need to know from your competition to succeed. And you need to know a few things. You need to understand their brand. So what is their suite of products or services, or what type of content are they creating? How are they positioning that content? So is that unique or different from yours? Is it really similar to yours? How can you kind of edge yourself out there? And then you also need to know their search profile. So this is where we really dig into a tool like SEMrush, where we dive into their domain authority. So we're looking at what does their organic traffic look like? Is it significantly higher, significantly lower than yours, right aligned? What keywords are they ranking for? And what are their top driving keywords to their websites? I always like to look at the keywords that are in the top 10 and the top 20 different positions, because then you can see, okay, these are generating a decent amount of traffic for the site, or they could be. So that's likely on their optimization list if it's in that 11 to 20 spot. And then you take all of this information, and what does this do for us and our content strategy? It really helps identify topical gaps that we're missing. So we say, wow, our competitors are talking about this and we're not, and that's bad. And then we can also have areas where we're missing particular content, where they're missing particular content, and that we can step in too. So we say, oh, this is a really important topical area and they're not talking about it. Let's dive in. So very fun with competition.
Yeah.
But don't get caught up.
Exactly. Don't let it paralyze you, and don't let it sway you off of the strategy that you've already put in place that's right for your brand and for your audience. Because even though they're maybe your competitor, you may be speaking to a very specific audience that's ever so slightly different than yours, and you believe them to be a competitor of yours, but they have a different strategy, and the long game strategy may be different than what yours is. So yeah, great. All right, awesome. Let's keep on moving. You have so much awesome stuff to share with us. So yeah.
I know we got to keep rocking and rolling here, but we also need to look at goals and reporting. So setting up good reporting structures for content is super important. So just take like SEO articles, for example. You want to make sure you have clear success metrics. So what's the organic traffic, the keywords, conversions from organic, that kind of thing. And I like to set reporting metrics based on the funnel. So I look at awareness, engagement, and then conversion, set different content parameters that go underneath them, reporting structures, and report on them either weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. So you always have numbers to prove your success as a content team, which I think is critical. Cool. So then we talked a little bit about SEO and search, but I love this piece of the puzzle where you do a big deep dive into your own domains performance. So you do a site audit, and I like to use SEMrush, and that'll tell you the different errors that might be popping up, small fixes that you can make, and even big fixes that you can make to dramatically increase your rankings. Because what we don't want to do is be publishing awesome content, right? The content rocks, but the technical back end is inhibiting us from getting the rankings that we need. So that's why these site audits are super important, big piece of that strategy puzzle, because then you can see where you're missing things. And moving into a content audit, so slightly different. We like move from the technical back end to then what our essentially book of business. What does our content library already look like? And we see what is our top performing content, what gets the most clicks, traction, views, and then we dissect that content. Why is it working? Do we use a specific hook? Were we engaging to a specific pain point for our audience? Is one segment of our audience maybe more engaged than another? And then we can use that to create even more collateral. Awesome. Okay, now we know where we are. We know what's going on with our site and what's performing well. We just have to figure out where we are going to post. This is our channel and distribution strategy. So where are we showing up? How do we want to strategically position ourselves? I like to usually have 3 to 4 content pillars per platform that we're showing up on. So if it's blogging, social media, emails, we have like these 3 to 4 topical areas where we become the experts online. So defining that, and then again, strategically positioning that for your audience to consume.
Can I ask you a quick question about becoming the expert? So as a publisher, if you're not, say, like a subject matter expert, but you're incredibly passionate about a certain vertical, or I'm going to think of a video game. Let's say you're just incredibly passionate about a video game, and that's your community, and you are almost an expert in news of the game. Like, I just want to make sure that, like, I want to ask you the question, there's so many different varying degrees of expert. And I think that would be something, even though we're getting short on time, which is fine. We can go over. Okay. We're in charge here. We can go over. But I just want to talk a little bit about that, like, area of expertise, aspect of that channel strategy and content distribution strategy. Love you to expand just a little bit on that.
Yeah, I think it's important to know the vertical that you want to be in and the community that you're involved in. So it's different for different types of content. If we're talking about content in your money, your life type topics, then I would say you would really need to make sure that you have maybe medically reviewed content, or your sources are medically backed or research backed. But another really great way is to do a lot of interviews. So interview SMEs in that particular area. If it's video games, do a ride along and like record that interview, make a fun video or blog post on it, just engaging in the community. So I think there's first person perspective that does qualify you to be an expert in your space if you're talking about your opinion and your story. And it's also engaging with other experts in that area and really diving into that community, again, through direct interviews, through going to industry events. So maybe you're at conferences and you're hearing people speak on that topic. So I think just really embedding yourself in that community. Really.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to make that differentiation that like, yeah, an expert can mean a lot of things. You can think about a journalist. They're not necessarily always an expert in everything, but through research and interviews and being passionate about the subject, they can present the news or the information in an expert way, but not claim to be the expert. And I think about that with a lot of different publishing avenues, as you can be the conduit to other people's expertise. But yeah, awesome. Okay, great. Thank you.
Of course. So we already walked through the tools, so I can kind of skip over this slide of what I like to use. So you'll hear me again talk about SEMrush, talk about Answer the Public, talk about Google. And for optimization, I did want to call out Surfer SEO. We use that a lot for content optimization, especially for specific keywords.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So now we get to go into the fun stuff, the Christmas and July stuff. So we now have an amazing foundation for what we're going to talk about for the content strategy. Now we can make it seasonal. And we know that seasonal this time of year is huge buying time. People are buying ads. Ad publishers are, or ad, God, goodness gracious. Companies are purchasing ad slots. That is happening a lot. And people are buying. So this is a huge time. I think that people are online and that we need to be online as content creators. You'll see a lot of blog posts that will say, oh, we maybe don't need to show up during the holidays because people aren't online or it's not really worth it. I would say that that's not, in my experience, has been the case. So I think still showing up and having a clear strategy around that makes perfect sense. And when we talk about seasonality in your content strategy, I do think it's important to differentiate what seasonality can mean, because seasonality is not just Christmas or New Year's. It comes in a lot of different forms, and it should be something that you're planning for throughout the year, depending on your expertise and where you're at. So I think about your industry's topical cycles that it goes through. So tax time. You're always going to be writing about taxes in the spring. That's how it works. Open enrollment. You're always writing about that in the fall. So just think about where those different topics fall in your vertical's calendar, and make sure that you're planning to write content or update content on those topics, because searches will increase.
Yeah. Lauren, can I ask you a quick question? So we're talking about the holidays. So yes. You're a content publisher, you have a website, and maybe you want to do, and we're going to talk a little later probably about ideas, but you have a gift guide or something. Okay. So, and then you're talking about preparing for tax season, and you're like, okay, that's in the spring. But just like anything, we need to put it out in the world ahead of when people need it. So can you speak, I don't know if that's later in your slide, I maybe just jumping the gun, but I think that it's really important to talk about that, like publishing on April 1st about tax preparation is not appropriate, right? Is it that do we start publishing those things in February? What is that lead time on publishing content that has seasonality cycle to it?
If there is a deadline associated with it, like something like tax time, we definitely need to give people 4 to 6 weeks to digest that content. Absolutely. Because as you said, if you publish it on April 1, if you publish it on April 15, you've missed it. You're too late, because people are searching prior to that date. The same is true for Christmas. If you try to, look for something on Christmas Eve on, December 24th, it just is not going to work for you publishing that piece, because a lot of people have already searched for it. You've missed the window. So
and I think that, sorry, let me interrupt. I think that I was just thinking about my mom. So that goes back to knowing your audience, right? So like, let's say I have a website that talks about, home decor and, whatever the subject is, right? you have to know your audience, because even for Christmas, right? You may think 6 weeks ahead, putting your gift guide out is an appropriate time because you're like, goodness, it's 6 weeks before Christmas. But if your audience is my mom, you needed to put it out like 3 months before Christmas, because she's so prepared and she actually starts her holiday shopping so far in advance. And that goes back to that, like really understanding your audience and when they do the things they do. Some people prepare their taxes super early. You have a more proactive audience, but that's super super helpful, is to always be thinking like it's much sooner than what that deadline is.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and I bet I have a text from my grandmother asking for a Christmas list. I hear you.
Yeah.
It's like, that is just how it works. So I agree. Your audience is critical to determining when you're going to publish this stuff and when those spikes of interest happen.
Yeah, great.
And so then when we talk about seasonality, there's also cyclical events that happen throughout the year that aren't necessarily holidays that your brand could be really well suited for, that you could have really good content for. I think back to school is a fantastic one. So if you are putting together a guide of what someone needs to get back to school ready, and you have notebooks and backpacks, or, I'm dating myself now saying that. It's like tablets and tablet covers. People don't buy backpacks anymore. Anyway, you need to get that. You need to understand when that's happening and make sure that you get your content out in time to meet that event. And the same thing could be true for sporting events too. Perhaps, if there's a March Madness, Super Bowl, the Olympics that are happening. I mean, you might have missed the Olympic window, but just thinking about all of those different events that are happening and where you can strategically show up and get some of that traffic.
You could always, if you miss it, you could always do recap content.
Yes.
You can always do recap content. If you're, dang it, I missed it, you might be able to sneak in some recap content.
Right, you'll be fine. And I think seasonality is also very important when we talk about trending media. So if a new product was released, for example, or new updates that have happened in the space that you're working in, you need to jump on that and really make sure you're creating content that's super helpful in that space.
Yeah. Great. Amazing.
Yeah. So then, okay, we talked about everything else besides the holidays. So actually talk about the holidays.
Yeah.
I really have these two questions that I think creators always need to ask themselves are, what value do we bring to the audience in this particular post? How is this going to be different from every other gift guide, every other product comparison? And then what are our goals for this? So obviously, we want to maximize ad revenue in this case.
Yeah.
But just thinking about these two things is going to be really critical as you build your content strategies. Never forget about them, because we don't just want to publish for the sake of
and going back to that kind of omni-channel or different content distribution channels and whatnot. You're going to show us some things here pretty soon. I had a sneak peek at the deck, but it's really pushing that traffic to your site for them to get the full whatever that is, the full look at your content that's going to bring awareness, conversions, and even just traffic to your site. So making sure that it's really engaging and exciting and adds the value during that season is so important. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. So there are a lot of ways that you can stand out, and the worst thing you can do is this and not publish anything. Just have your blanket. Happy holidays. Thanks so much. How many times have we seen all of these things, or very, very small, tiny tweaks or iterations of them throughout blogs everywhere? We need to stop doing it. So we need to just put in a bit more effort.
That's a big do not do. It's on the do not do this list. Yeah.
If you take anything away, let it be. Just don't do this. There are just a couple of strategical ways that you can approach your content that might be different than what other content creators are doing. And one of those high-level ways is to subvert expectations. You go into the holidays, everyone's thinking warm and fuzzy. Everyone's thinking baking with their family. Everyone's thinking about, presents. Maybe you do a, sale on all of the holiday booze that's going on because you're tired of your family, and then you have a roundup of all of that. Think about what could be different, what could make a splash. So these are just different examples from brands that have done that for a Black Friday perspective. But again, you could take this idea of doing something different, of saying something new when everyone is saying the same thing.
I look at that Patagonia one. Sorry to like, I think there's a glitch and I think I just talked over you. I'm sorry about that.
No.
I look at that Patagonia one and it's so interesting to me because while it is, of course, the conversion is a brand, a brand wanting you to purchase the jacket. As a publisher, it's so inspiring to me because when you think about gift guides, I see something like putting something really kind of ugly up there and being like, did you get, don't let your grandma buy you this for Christmas. And it's like you just said that your grandma is asking you for your Christmas list. Like instead of doing a gift guide, how fun would it be to be like, your grandma's asking you for your Christmas list. Make sure she doesn't buy you this,
Yes.
like how fun. And then it's a different than just like, here's my top 10 things to buy, your husband this year or something. It's like, you really lean into the fun of that. And that one, I instantly saw that. I was like, that is, of course, it's Patagonia, how fun. It's great.
Exactly. This ad is a classic now, I think for a reason. We've been talking about it since 2011 and because it's still interesting and we can find new applications of it even today. So I agree. I love what not to give gift guides.
I love it.
Fantastic. Another strategy, again, shameless plug here for SEMrush, is making your content into a bit of a game. Gamification is really important for motivation and engagement. So if there's anything that you can do to make your content interactive, personalized, perhaps through a quiz or something like that, that really boosts engagement. It can be really fun and different, stand out in the space.
I love that. Everyone loves a game.
Game. Yes. And what says the holidays more than like getting into a fight over risk, over the table?
I love it.
And we can't talk about holiday marketing without talking about nostalgia, which is my personal favorite thing to lean into. And it's not just that it does give me the warm and fuzzies and I fall for it every single time, but there is real data that people do search for and want to buy products that make them feel nostalgic. So if you're doing that gift guide, if you're doing your product roundups, if you add that really nostalgic flair, that could get people to keep scrolling on your site, to get people to maybe laugh at that fun little joke or that little remark that you made. And those things can go a really long way.
I see that the millennials and the Gen Z, I mean, that's the ages of my children. And I think that they could probably write a gift guide of all the things I asked for when I was a kid and didn't get. Like that would be a fun blog to read, right? Like what my 8-year-old self had on my Santa list that I actually still want today or something. Like how fun would that be to see? And I think I'm going to ask my kids that. What did you not get when you were 9 that you wish you could get this year? I love it.
Absolutely read that blog. That would be
I would too.
Delightful. It's so delightful. It's so charming. And I think, just don't shy away from that emotion. I know sometimes marketers try to be like, oh, we can't be nostalgic. We can't show emotion. You really actually can and should.
Authentic.
Exactly. So, and we talked a lot about these different topical ideas for publishers. We talked so much about gift guides and product listicles. But I do think that the big takeaway here is to try to do something a bit different in that space to stand out. Still make sure that you're doing your keyword research and you get the proper search terms in there and that you're positioning the article in a way that matches what the search queries are looking for, right? You don't want to totally just go rogue because then the search might not prioritize your article, but just try to be smart and witty about it. And then it could add a little different flavor and make people interested in. I really like the product reviews and in-depth comparisons, especially if it tells me like all of the different product specifications. I'm like, tell me everything. I want to know because that's what I'm doing at this stage. So really diving into that. I kind of have a hot take on how-to articles. I don't love them because I'm a little bit worried that with the new rollout of Google's AI overviews, that the AI overviews are going to end up taking a lot of the top spots for some of these high-level informational how-to style keywords. So if you are going to do a how-to for your holidays, I think that making sure it's very, very detailed, super specific, and maybe full of the expert information, maybe some interviews, some quotes from experts, just to make something different. I think we should be wary of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, recipes and activities, so great. Everyone's looking for something new and unique to do during the holidays and recipes to make. So I love that one so much. Well, Laura, I think we're at our 30-minute mark because, we could talk about content and we could brainstorm live on camera for probably 2 hours and have the most fun time.
Easily.
I know I have learned so much and I am actually so inspired. I am excited. I think I'm gonna make my kids write that blog with me. I
Yes.
don't know. I don't know where I'll publish it. Maybe I'll just put it on my LinkedIn, but I think it would be a really, really fun one. Thank you so much for your time and your wealth of knowledge. We're so grateful for you sitting down today and sharing that with everybody at Playwire and on our LinkedIn Live. And we're just so appreciative. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Courtney. This was the best time. I had a great experience. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thanks.